Molly and I were talking that 2 weeks is too little because we want to have more practice with you.
Okay.
So we want to have it like in 3 weeks.
Okay.
So it's better because we didn't really practice with the OPI with you.
Okay.
So we want to have like
more time to practice
Yeah.
orally together. Yeah.
And well,
That's okay.
sorry.
I'll be
She
fine.
messaged me.
You can keep going.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and
I can keep going?
if you
Is that all right?
guys,
No, that's
well,
not right.
if you guys are wanting to have more practice time per chapter, but still try to cover more material, one option to consider would be to consolidate like 2 chapters into 1 test, so that we'd have a little bit more class time to prepare for both. So we can see how it goes with lesson 7
Okay.
and see if 2 weeks of practice on lesson 7 and then 2 weeks of practice on lesson 8 and then a test
For 2.
for 2 chapters at once, that would be more like,
Yeah.
5 weeks cover 2 chapters instead of 3 weeks per chapter or 2 weeks per chapter, which is so it's a kind of a compromise.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility to consider, because I know you guys were hoping to try to catch up to those guys, but it's not
that's what
easy.
they're hopeless. Because they're speeding up too.
Yeah, because I have other classes and like last week I had like 2 tests the same week and I have another
Okay.
one today. So I've been
Yeah.
studying for everything and I'm just like.
Yeah, okay, so we'll play it by ear and see how it goes.
they still shaking the building?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's not your imagination. Yeah, the building did just shake. Okay, so looking at lesson 7, so were there questions about any issues you ran into, or do you want to just kind of start with the first activity that's not on the recording?
Do you mind if we do it even though if it's in the recording?
Okay, you wanna do
Yeah,
a
because
little
I like to
extra
practice everything that way I know if I'm doing it right or not.
Okay,
Do you mind?
Nope.
okay, so you want to start with 何をしていますか?
はい。
はい、じゃあどうぞ。
I ask, right?
はい、
Okay. マリーさんは何をしていますか?
Oh, number 1 or the
Number 1.
You can do number 1.
図書館で読んでいます。
はい。And you can say 図書館で本を読んでいます also.
はい。
So, はい、じゃあ2番どうぞ。
メリーさんは何をしていますか？
海で泳いでいます。
はい、そうですね。Okay, now is Joe going to participate, or are you just kind of listening and
Just listening.
practicing your own stuff? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. どうぞ。
メリーさんは何をしていますか?
Do we get to word for flower?
Or take a picture.
Just taking a picture is fine.
Okay. 写真を撮っています。
はい。
撮って。
はい、写真を撮っています。撮っ
撮る is a either.
はい。
Oh, I thought it was a either.
あ、撮っています。
That was my
Small two.
mistake in my the
Okay,
test.
撮っています。はい。写真を撮っています。はい。And if you wanted to know, flower is 花, so you could say 花の写真を撮っています。
Right.
Okay.
はい、どうぞ。
Ask away.
メリーさんは何をしていますか？
日本語をis it the Japanese?
いや、日本語を
聞いています。
はい、聞いています。Or alternatively, she's doing the homework for
Oh.
Japanese, so it could be
勉強。
日本語を勉強しています or 日本語の宿題をしています。You know, so there's lots of options there for that
Okay.
one. どうぞ。
メアリーさんは何をしていますか?
メリーさんは歌って
はい、歌を歌っています。
歌を歌っています。
はい。
Okay.
Sounds repetitive, but it's because it's the same kanji for both the noun and the verb.
あ
歌を歌っています。
歌を歌って
はい、どうぞ。
います。
メリーさんは何をしていますか？
たけしさんと
たけしじゃない。
Oh, it doesn't matter, does it?
No, don't worry about it.
Who
Just
is
say
that?
it.
Maybe Roberto? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
That's not over because
That's
he's
random
born.
student
Okay.
D. Random student.
友達と
はい
友達と話しています。
はい、そうですね。はい、どうぞ。
メアリーさんは何をしていますか？
たけしさんを待っています。
はい、待っていますね。はい、どうぞ。
メアリーさんは何をしていますか？
ゲームをしています。
はい、そうですね。テレビゲームをしています。
じゃあ、メアリーさんは何をしていますか？
テニスをしています。
はい、そうですね。
メアリーさんは何をしていますか？
喫茶店でコーヒーを飲んでいます。
はい。
メアリーさんは何をしていますか？
電話に話します。話しています。
電話で、
電話で話しています。
はい、話しています。
Would it be 電話をかけ
You could use 電話をかけています。That works too. 電話をかけています。
電話で。
Especially since they're showing the moshi moshi, so that's like she just started the phone call, so she's making a phone call. Yeah, 電話をかけています。That works. Either one works there. Okay, じゃあ、ペアワーク。So this is going to be the ていました
As it
forms
says.
because it's past tense. I was doing X. Okay.
Okay. I'll do it.
はい。
午後6時
午後
午前
はい。
午前6時頃何をしていますか？
していましたか？午前6時に。
午前6時に私は寝ていました。
はい、寝ていましたね。そうですね。じゃあ、今どうぞ。
午前8時頃に
ごろ、はい。
何をしていましたか？
仕事をしていました。
はい、いいですね。じゃあ、3番は
午前10時頃何をしていますか？
して
ましたか？
はい、していましたか？
午前10時に私は朝ごはんを食べます。
Oh,
食べ
Ellie's
てい
not
ま
coming
した。
today.
食べていました。Oh, she's not coming
No,
today.
yeah, she just messaged me.
はい、OK。
はい。
じゃあ、朝ごはんを食べてました。はい。
12時半に
午前 or 午後
午後
はい。
午後12時半に何をしています
で
何をしていましたか？
していましたか？はい。
昼ご飯を食べていました。
はい。
午後6時頃何をしていましたか？
午後6時に私はテレビを見ていました。
はい。いいですね。テレビを見ていました。
So, I'm sorry. Now that we know they're staying us, we can use that like instead of saying imas or imas.
Yeah.
It's like right now, like.
If you're doing it right now, yeah, テレビを見ています。Yeah. Okay, so テレビを見ていました。はい。
午後8時頃何をしていますか
8時頃 or 8時に but not に頃.
It's not me, sorry.
Yeah, you can use 頃に
8時
but you don't
頃
really need a に after 頃. So 午後8時頃
午後8時頃何をしていますか
していましたか？
いました
It's
か
gonna be
し
the
ていましたか？
テレビでドラマを見ていました。
はい、いいですね。
あ
これはもう見てました。はい、じゃあ7番どうぞ。
午後11時頃何をしていましたか？
午後11に、いや、
11時、
1時に
はい、11時に、
アニメを見ていました。
アニメを見てましたね。
どんなアニ
ですか？フェアリーテイ
あ、そうですね。いいね。Okay. じゃあ、okay. Well, charades with two people is kind of boring.
Okay.
So,
Do we have to do it for the homework? The charades?
That does seem kind of silly, doesn't
It's
it?
really-
So I guess
Yeah, so I guess we can skip that
Okay.
one. Yeah, if you do enough other practices with teimas, I think you'll be fine.
okay.
You know, but that's a really useful phrase, isn't it? I mean, to be able to say somebody is doing or was doing various activities, it's just really useful. And you're right about, you know, all the things you've already learned how to say, you know, hono yomimasu, now you can say hono yondemasu, you know, or yondemashita, yeah. So you can take all of the verbs you've known in the past and use this new structure with them. And yondeiru is the dictionary form. So as we get into casual speech later, you'll find that you can do short forms with te imas as well. So right now you guys don't know a lot of the short forms yet, but just, you know, preview of coming attractions, you know, that's once you've learned how to do short forms, then work not only with the straight verbs, but also with the te imas verbs as well. The te form would stay the same, and the mas ending would be what conjugates. So te imas converts to teiru. So like tabete imasu, tabeteiru. Just like taberu is the casual form, tabeteiru is the casual form. Okay, so tabete imasu. Okay, let's look at part 2. お父さんはどこに住んでいますか? So this is that contrast they were talking about. Active verbs like 写真を撮っています. It's obviously an action. She's doing that now. Versus 住んでいます means lives in that place, right? You know, so we wouldn't necessarily say he's living in Melbourne right now. You could, but you could just as easily in English say he lives in Melbourne right now. But in Japanese, 住んでいます is the normal structure there. Sumimasu sounds odd.
Okay. So we wouldn't use sumimasu.
No.
Like
Yeah.
Australia.
Australia ni sumimasu sounds weird. Australia ni sundeimasu, he's living there now. Or Australia ni sundeimashita, he was living there
Okay.
during the time duration that we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's using the plain form of that one just sounds odd. There's certain set phrases where the teimas form is kind of the norm, and that's one of them. Okay, so let's look at some of these examples.
So that means he lives in New York.
Hi.
Okay. Okay, I'll go with that.
はい。
お姉さんはどこに住んでいますか?
お姉さんはソウルに住んでいます。
はい、
Oh
そう
my
ですね。
goodness.
ソウルに住んでいます。はい。
I was like, oh, okay, I'll just make it up.
Do we like include everything in the chart?
Well, just one thing at a time because there are going to be different questions
Okay.
asked about the different chart info. どうぞ、2番。
お父さんは
Is that お父さん?
Is that 弟さん? Yeah. 弟さんはアメリカに住んでいますか?
いいえ、アメリカに住んでいません。ロンドンに住んでいます。
はい、そうですね。
お母さんは何をしていますか?
You can say des, but you could also say 高校の先生をしています.
Okay.
You can actually use しています for
She's doing it.
she's doing high school teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an odd idiom,
Yeah.
but you can
Is it?
say 高校の先生です or have you had the verb to teach yet?
教える No.
はい、教える Okay.
Have we?
No.
No.
No? Okay. So, because that would be the other way. 高校
Yeah, we
で教えています
Yes, you have.
教える You have had that one.
Yeah.
So, 教えています would be the other way. You could do 高校で
おここで
高校で教えています
Oh,
She's teaching
yeah.
at a high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So either or. Okay.
どうぞ、質問。
お姉さんは何をしていますか？
お姉さんは銀行に銀行で
I think it was me.
に
銀行に勤めてる。
勤める Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was me.
に勤める
Yeah.
勤めています Okay. 銀行に勤めています
勤めてい
ます
い
した
はい、いましたが、今、
結婚しま
結婚しています。はい、結婚しています。So,
Oh, but there's a
like so
different way.
many women in East Asia, she had a job and then she got married and quit her job.
Oh, because number 5 is お姉さんは
Yeah, it doesn't
結
say
婚
work.
していますか
Yeah.
So she put
Yeah, well, it says worked for a bank, right?
no.
Works at a bank.
Oh, yours says works?
Yeah.
Oh, mine's got a D in there. I thought it was a typo in the sense of like the E was missing, but maybe they meant to have an S there.
Yeah.
So yours says works also? Okay, so that's
I was a bit
my
confused.
copy. Yeah. So, so, 銀行に勤めています. You were right then. Okay, I'm gonna correct that in here. Oops, that's confusing. Yeah, apparently even within the second edition, there are newer printings that have some of these typos corrected. And mine is one of the older printings because I got it earlier. Okay.
もう一度。
はい、もう一度。
お姉さんは銀行に勤めています。
はい、そうですね。じゃあどうぞ。
お姉さんは結婚していますか？
はい、結婚しています。
はい、いいですね。じゃあ7番は
お父さんは
あ、
の
6番。あ、is that お父さん
6
Oh, sorry, I thought we were,
Oh.
yeah, お姉さん was
弟さん
弟さん、yeah.
結婚していますか？
いいえ、結婚していません。
はい。ね、
はい。お父さんは何歳ですか？
お父さんは48歳です。
はい。
We use this just regularly.
Yeah,
Okay.
48歳です。はい。
弟さんは何歳ですか
18歳です。
はい。
8歳、
18歳。はい。
お父さんは日本の会社に勤めていますか？
いいえ、アメリカの会社に勤めています。
はい。いいですね。質問がありますか？
いいえ、
勤めて means to work for.
Yeah.
What about?
働く also means to work. There's a little bit of a connotation difference. I think 勤める kind of sounds more like a white collar job and 働く sounds more blue collar. I think that, oh, sorry, yeah, that's a very American cultural thing. Blue collar jobs refer to like harder labor, like physical labor. Like
Oh.
construction is blue collar, office worker is white collar. So since they're talking about a bank and a company,
So he's-
so I think that's why they're using 勤める for, like somebody who works in an office, kind of. Hataraku, I think, implies more of an hourly wage kind of job rather than a salaried job.
So hataraku means actually like work, like labor.
Yeah, I think, but it's not a cut and dried
Mhm.
difference. It's more of a connotation.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's not 100%. Like you can't define it as this one is always this and that one is always that. I think there's some overlap,
Okay.
but I think that's sort of a general feel of the difference.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so should we try the next one where you're asking your partner
Mhm.
about their families?
Okay. ライアンさんのお父さんはどこに住んでいますか？
メルバーンに住んでいます。
Okay. Your turn.
姫菜さんのお父さんは何歳ですか？
You can make it up if you can't remember.
64歳です。I think.
Something like that.
His birthday is on Halloween, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. 面白いですね。
ライアンさんのお兄さんは何をしていますか？
わかりません。多分テレビを見ています。
Well, when it says "nani o shite imasu ka," in this context, it
It
means
means
like what
what-
kind of
Oh,
job
like
does he do?
work.
What's he doing for work?
Just make it.
何もしません。
フリーダ。
自由だ。
面白い。
Your turn.
姫菜さんの弟さん OK どこに住んでいますか？
What should we say? Does he live at home? Like
Yeah.
he had the.
Yeah.
Or would you just mean like Melbourne?
You could use it either way. Uchi ni sundeimasu or
Or just make it.
yeah.
うちに住んでいます。
Right. Yeah, I think, if you're talking to somebody you don't know well, that question implies what city.
Oh.
But if you already know the other person's family lives in, say, the same city you live in, then it could be more asking like, does he live at home with his parents or on his own?
ライアンさんのお父さんは何歳ですか
53歳です。
If you want to say approximately, you could add gurai.
Oh,
Doji sansai gurai desu. About, if you're not entirely sure.
姫菜さんのお兄さん何をしていますか？
会社で勤めています。I don't have an older brother, but
Okay.
I just made it up.
Okay.
OK
ライアンさんのお姉さんは結婚していますか？
いいえ結婚していません。姫菜さんのお母さん何をしていますか？
母さんは
お母さんは、
何をしていますか？
姫根さんのお母さんは何をしていますか？
小学校
うん
の先生です。
あ、なるほど。小学校の先生ですね。何を教えてますか？
Oh, I'll
な
just read that.
Oh, okay.
ライアンさんの弟は何歳ですか？
Oh, and if you're talking to him about his family, you would say 弟さん。
弟さん
What?
は何歳ですか？
弟がいません。
Okay.
でも
弟がいません。
Well, he'd be,
In elementary school or something
Yeah.
probably.
Yes,
8
I-
years old.
Okay. Just a quick culture note. Do you know why you add san sometimes and not other times with ototo and imoto?
sounds good.
Okay. When does it sound rude to not add san? Do you know?
When it's somebody else's?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're talking about your own little siblings, you drop the san. But if you're talking about someone else's little siblings, you add the san. And actually, the same thing is true with the other family terms. They just haven't introduced all the family terms yet that you would use for talking about your own family. Is that for whatever reason, the
Oh,
ones
yeah,
for
they
younger
did.
siblings,
They did introduce it.
they
just haven't
did.
used
We
it.
just hadn't used them yet.
Yeah,
So
so
you
the ane and the
ane
chichi,
and
haha.
ane, ani, yeah. So if you're talking about your own family, you could say, ane wa, 28歳です or, 兄は結婚していません
But you can say onesan too,
They
right?
gave
You
yeah, you
can, but it implies a level of friendship between the two of you, which, you guys have, so that's fine, but
If it's
just
a stranger.
if it's a stranger, it sounds a little childish for you to talk about your own family members as otosan, okasan, onesan, onisan, because that's how little kids talk about their family when they haven't learned those humble, polite forms yet. But for grown people, if you're talking about your own family to close friends, you might say something like uchi no otosan to mean my dad versus someone else's dad. But if you're talking to somebody that you're not close friends with, you would say chichi or uchi no chichi and uchi no haha,
So if it's
uchi
a,
no ani, uchi no ane, like
so
that.
if it's a close friend, we can say otosan or uchi no
Yeah.
otosan, uchi no
Yeah,
onesan.
yeah, and the uchino helps differentiate that you're talking about your own parents now, not his, things like that, or your own siblings, not his.
So if he was a stranger, I would say chichi wa.
Yeah, yeah, and he would ask you, お父さんは何歳ですか? And you would say, 父は45歳です, or whatever the pay.
But he
The
would
number
he
would
wouldn't
be.
say chichi wa nansai desu ka?
No, because chichi, haha, ane, ani, all of those terms are what they call humble polite, which means that you're being humble about your own family to outsiders. And then when you're talking about their family, you have to use the honorific polite, which is the terms that add san.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then if you're talking to your mom and dad, you would say okasan, otosan, because you're being honorific toward them. And in families that are that formal, some families still, the older siblings get called onesan, onisan by the younger siblings. In some families, if they're real formal, even the parents will refer to the oldest children as onesan, onisan, as a matter of course, because they got in the habit when the kids were little and they were modeling for the baby how the child was supposed to dress their older siblings. So like in a family of 3 sisters, if the oldest is named Noriko, they might call her Noriko ne-chan. And the second sister might be Mariko, then she is Mariko ne-chan. And only the littlest sister, maybe her name is Etsuko, they call her just Etsuko or whatever her baby nickname was. know.
So it can be like Marigo or like
Yeah.
Yo.
So even the mom might call the older two, you know, she's trying to get Mariko's attention. She might just call her Mariko, or she might call her Mariko ne-chan to get her attention, because that's kind of become the form of address. But the oldest sister probably just calls her Mariko, but the little sister calls her Mariko ne-chan.
Oh, okay.
No. So in families that are that traditional, not all families are, but I knew families that were and I knew families that weren't. You know, some families, the little kids called their older siblings just by their name without anything on the end, or by whatever their nickname was with chan on the end. In some families, they really did the one-chan thing.
It just depends on the family.
Yeah, it depends on the family. You know, I just like here, you know, there are families that are more traditional, polite, and, you know, they learn to say yes ma'am, no ma'am from early childhood. And other families, that's not
Yeah.
a value, so they don't teach them to say it that way, and they don't use that. And, you know, so I knew a family that was super casual. They had 5 kids, and they were, you know, they did organic farming, and they were just really like new agey. And they had no interest in teaching their 5-year-old to be that polite to her 20-year-old sister, you know, even though there was that big age gap.
Yeah.
And then I knew another family where there was only like a 3-year age gap between siblings, but the older 2 daughters did get called so-and-so ne-chan, so-and-so ne-chan, and the youngest one was the only one who just got called by her nickname.
Even by the parents.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was, you know, that was just the way it was done. They also wore kimono for New Year's festival celebration and things like that. You know, they did a lot of more traditional stuff, and had a more traditional house and a more traditional lifestyle, and lived in a more rural area. And my New Agey family, they lived in a suburb of Tokyo, and, you know, they had a little organic farm plot, but they also had like cats running in and out of the house and not worrying about wiping their paws every time, and you know, they had a much more laissez-faire kind of attitude about life in general. They just weren't worried about stuff, you know. They weren't
my
that
type of
formal.
life.
Yeah, they weren't super formal. And like when their 20-year-old daughter decided she really wanted to get her own apartment in the city so that she could have some space and independence, they let her do it, which, you know, by Japanese standards is like, your single daughter, you're letting her live by herself instead of stay at home with you until she gets married? What? You know?
But it's not like my mom, though. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to get out. I'm like, why? She's
Yeah.
like, you don't have. Like, it's just a Hispanic thing too.
Yeah.
Like, we're so used to like live together until like one gets
Yeah.
married.
Yeah.
But then still we live close because they always come by.
Yeah.
But it's different here, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, so, you know, even in Japan, there's that diversity that some families are more traditional, some families are more modern, you know. They were probably the least traditional Japanese family I've ever met, you know. And they just, you know, they had a very different worldview. One of them had, I think, the father had published a book about environmental issues and stuff, you know, very cutting edge folks, you know.
Nice.
So
How long ago was that?
that was like 1990. So, so yeah, he had published the book somewhere in the 80s because he gave me a copy. So obviously it had been out for a while.
Wow. Should we do the next one?
Yeah, let's try it. Okay, so
That's enough for me.
sun, not the sun.
この人は神
Okay, so notice the blank wa, blank ga, and the adjective. So when you're talking about, you know, like your pencil case is pretty, you would use no. Okay, so Himena-san no furebako wa kirei desu. No and wa. But when you're talking about physical attributes of the person, they use the wa ga structure, similar to when you're using like the structure for things you like and dislike, things you're good at and bad at. You remember? Watashi wa 料理が上手です or 料理が下手です those kinds of structures and 私は寿司が好きです or 寿司が好きじゃないです all those structures use the はが because they're attributes that kind of are part of who you are as a personality sort of and these physical attributes also are sort of things that people associate as being part of who you are so that's probably as good an explanation as any for why they use that structure instead of the ownership structure. Yeah, so items that you own, you use the no wa, but items that are part of your physical self or your likes and dislikes, use the wa ga.
So if I say my hair is long, it's be like 私の髪が
No, 私は
私
髪が長いです。
私
So
は
I am one who has long hair.
Oh.
Yeah, it's more like that.
And if I wanna say
It's more like saying I'm a long-haired person instead of my hair is long.
So I want to say 私は髪が好き or would it be 私の
Well,
髪が好き
Okay, if you're saying I
I
like
like
my
my
hair.
hair.
Well, 私は No, you would use 私の髪が好きです because technically, if you were to do the whole sentence, it would be 私は私の髪が好きです
Oh, okay.
So you're saying that I like
my
my hair. Yeah.
Okay. But for like description,
Yeah,
be
for
like
description.
私は髪が長いです
Yeah,
Got it.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and of course they did some very funny, exaggerated
I know.
cartoons to help you get which one they wanted you to do for these. So the example, obviously, この人は目が大きいですね. Looks like even more exaggerated than your typical manga.
Yeah, I know.
They wanted to make sure you got the point.
You start.
どうぞ.
Oh, I'm putting it out.
はい、1番.
この人は目が小さいです。
はい、そうですね。じゃあ2番.
この人は Would it be smile? Is that what, or are they
Kuchi.
talking about their lips?
I think they're talking about mouth, so
Oh.
口.
Kuchi. Oh, okay. この人は口が大きいです。
はい、
この人は口が小さいです。
はい。
この
This is
人
weird. I want to say no.
この人は背が高いです。
はい、
この人は背が小さいです。
背が低いです。
低い。
はい、低
I
い
learned
で
that
す。
just now.
はい、背が低いです。
すみません。
So, yeah, that's okay. But notice again that height of a person, 背が高い、背が低い, versus, you know, ペンが長い、ペンが短い。短い? Yeah, 短い. For short length of an object versus a person.
So hikui is for like people.
Yeah, hikui is short in height, and 背が高い is tall in height. But nagai, mijikai are like lengths of things.
Like long and short.
Long and short
Oh.
length.
Like hair. About to do that.
Like my
Yeah.
hair is long.
Yeah.
Okay. この人は髪が長いです。
はい。
この人は髪が短いです。
はい、そうですね。And then you can modify these adjectives with ちょっと or とても to say a little bit or very. So for example, somebody whose hair is in between, it's not super, super long, but it's not super short either. You could say something like, ライオンさんは髪がちょっと長いです, right? It's not super long, it's not as long as yours, but for his hair texture, it's actually pretty long, because it takes a long time to grow that far, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, like
Yeah,
What? Really?
yeah, because it grows this way.
Oh. My hair.
Yeah,
I need to
yeah,
wear
that's
hair.
why my daughter's hair is shorter than yours, and we haven't cut it since she was 1. She's 3.5, and it's like, if you stretch it out, it's like that. That's after you blow it out and get it as stretched out as it can be. And then when it starts to shrink, it goes
It's so cute.
yeah.
You can't wet it and leave it.
My hair is
No.
Horrible.
Yeah, yeah, you wet it and leave it and go shoop,
Really?
Brillo pad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah,
When
my,
I-
my husband keeps his short, so he just wets it and leaves it, but, yeah.
When
Do
I
you
blow
want
dry
it
my
now?
hair, it's just like
Yeah.
straight and nice.
Yeah,
But then,
yeah, does your hair curl up if you don't blow it out?
yeah, like right here, it will curl. I hate it.
Aw.
I hate when it curls right here, and it's kind of wavy,
Yeah.
like this.
Oh, that's pretty.
But yeah, when I was younger, I had like straight hair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know what happened.
It changes.
Yeah.
I had a Japanese friend who said she was born with curly hair, and then she had some kind of fever or something when she was little, and all her hair fell out. And when it grew back in, wavy a little bit, but not curly like it had been. Her dad's hair was actually naturally curly, and so she had inherited that, but somehow when it grew back more like yours is now. Just a little bit of a wave to it. It was really weird.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
It
When
sounds
I was-
horrible. Yeah.
my hair like used
Sounds
to
like
be like
cancer.
straight, like like Asian straight,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom obviously would have my bangs cut, like
Oh,
full
yeah,
length hair.
bowl cut.
Yeah. So when she would, it would tangle a lot because
Yeah.
of how straight it was, and it was very fine.
Oh.
I would have like the worst time. I would cry every time she like combed my hair. But then I grew, and it's just like good.
Well, anyway, moving on. So looking at the picture and answering questions about Yamada-san and Yoshikawa-san.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, Yamada-san は痩せていますね。痩せています。わかりますか?
Oh yeah.
Right. So, and this is one of those things also where it's just cultural that Japanese people don't think it's any weirder to comment on someone being fat than it is to comment on them having long hair.
Okay. 山田さんは太っていますか?
いいえ、山田さん、太っていません。
はい。山田さんは太っていますね。
山田さんは太っていません。
はい。じゃあ2番どうぞ。
山田さんは T シャツを着ていますか?
いいえ、T シャツを着ていません。
はい。何を着ていますか?
セーター、
はい。セーターを着ています。
セーターを着ています。
はい。じゃあ3番は
吉川さんは何を着ていますか?
何を着ていますか? Make sure you're not putting a small suit in there the way you pronounce it.
Oh,
It's not 着ていますか?
着て
It's 着ていますか?
吉川さんは何を着ていますか? 着ていますか?
T シャツを着ています。
はい。そうですね。
山田さんは、oh, yeah, sorry. 山田さんはジーンズを履いていますか? 履いていますか?
はい、履いています。
はい。
How you do is to wear something down, right?
入る is, yeah. 履く。
履く
Not 入る。履く。
履く。
履く is wearing things that, basically it's anything that you pull up from below your feet. So skirts, pants, socks, shoes, all of those things are haku because you pull them up from below. Things that you put on over your shoulders are kiru. So, シャツを着ています。ジャケットを着ています。
What about a dress?
ドレスを着ています because you usually put it on over your head, right? And anything, well, I know, depends on the kind of dress, right?
Because if you have a zip down, you should just
Yeah,
put it
it's
up
easier
like
to,
that.
sometimes it's easier to step into it, but it goes on your
Shoulders,
shoulders.
yeah.
So that's kind of the key element is if
Above
it's
the waist.
on your shoulders and covering your torso, even if it hangs below that, you still use kiru. think about it this way. Kimono is the same kanji for kiru.
Oh.
And so kimono is literally thing to wear, because the mono in kimono is like a thing, an object.
To wear.
So kimono is literally wearing thing to wear, clothing, you know. So kimono is literally just clothing originally.
And then the
But
contrary.
then because of the contrast between Japanese clothing and Western clothing, kimono came to mean specifically Japanese clothing, and then yofuku means Western style clothing. But the verb kiru is from the same root as kimono.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's actually the same root or not, but haku sounds close to hakama. And hakama is that split skirt that samurai used to wear over their kimono. The way that thing works is you actually put on a normal full-length kimono, and then you put the hakama over the top of it, and so it allows the kimono to basically split and gives you more freedom of leg movement without worrying about modesty.
Why don't you
And
just wear a shirt and a pants, like the pants with a shirt?
it was just the norm. You know, maybe there were times, but if you've got a full-length kimono on
Right.
under there, it's easy to make sure that the kimono stays tucked. You know, you don't have to worry about it coming untucked in the middle of the day because it's only a few inches below the waist.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't like a full length. Like
It was a real kimono, yeah.
So it was
I've
like-
worn it, and it's a kimono like this, right, down to your ankles,
Oh, wow.
and then you kind of take the edges of the kimono and tuck it into your belt a little bit, and then you've got plenty of room to pull the hakama up over the top, and it ties around the waist over the top of the obi that's keeping your kimono in place. And why they didn't just
Cut it.
cut it, I don't know,
I mean,
but
like,
maybe it's
smart.
well, maybe it's because when they got home after a long day of riding horses or whatever, they could take the hakama off and relax in just the under kimono.
Got it.
You know, that's just a guess.
Right. You'll never
But hakama and haku at least start with the same sound, even if they're not actually from the same root word.
Mhm.
So that's a way to remember, because hakama was something that you pulled up from below, and that's what the verb haku means.
Okay.
And kimono, you obviously put on over your shoulders first, because when you first put on, you're putting it on kind of like you put on a bathrobe, and then you wrap it and start tying one of the zillion ties that goes around the middle to get it all to be just perfect.
Does it take a long time to put it on?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I wouldn't want one, but
Well, it depends on who's wearing it too, because guys' kimonos are a lot simpler than
Oh,
girls'
yeah.
kimonos.
even guy clothes are usually simpler than
Yeah.
women's.
Although not Victorian clothes, according to what I've read recently,
Really?
Victorian men's clothing was even more complicated than women's.
With the corset and
Yeah,
everything?
women had the corset, but men had like every little button down the shirt was a
Everywhere.
separate stud. You know those cufflinks?
Yeah.
The buttons were like cufflinks. They weren't attached to the shirt. They had to do each one individually. And you had the little separate collar piece that had to get attached just right, and then the cravat, and it sounds like Victorian clothing were more complicated.
Is that with the wigs?
No, that's
after.
late
Okay.
18, early 1900s.
Oh,
Yeah, women were wearing these corsets that made them super, super skinny.
I
And
would
men
want one.
had their shirts and jackets were tailored so that they had to keep a straight posture like this. You actually could not slouch in the thing. It was impossible to slouch in Victorian clothes, men's or women's.
That's cool. You should have kept it like that.
Yeah.
everybody's got
Yeah,
this.
so everybody had to have like perfect posture because it wouldn't fit otherwise. You literally could not get into your clothes
And then
if
you
you
like
were like
have
this.
like the big thing, the dresses on the back.
Yeah,
like-
well, the bustle was
The bustle.
earlier than that. By Victorian times, they'd kind of gotten rid of the bustle, but they were still doing the corset. And, yeah, if you want to learn more about it, the book is called Victorian Secrets. And it's actually, yes, it's by a woman who actually decided to start wearing a corset because she's such a Victorian history buff, and she had like a collection of historic clothing, and she couldn't wear any of it because she'd never worn a corset, so she couldn't fit into it. we'll get back to Japanese, but it's a fun book.
I want to read it because I do like Victorian clothes. So.
Okay.
Okay, what were we? Okay.
Okay. So.
吉川さんはメガネをかけていますか？かけていますか？
はい。
吉川さん。
Oh, 吉川。Sorry.
吉川さんは、
吉川さんはメガネを
かけて
かけて
いません。
かけていません。
はい。じゃあ6番。
吉川さんは傘を持っていますか？
いいえ、傘を持っていません。山田さんは背が高いですか？
はい。山田さんは背が高いです。
はい、そうですね。
吉川さん、
はい。
8。
はい、はい、8番どうぞ。
吉川さんは背が低いですか？
はい、背が低いです。
はい。
山田さんは髪が長いですか？
いいえ。山田さんは髪が短いです。
はい、短いです。Or you could say あまり長くないです。
あまり長くない。
Yeah, depending on how you feel about his length of hair, whether you feel like it's short or just not that long.
Yeah.
You know, あまり長くないです is like saying not that long versus いえ、短いです It's short. はい、どうぞ。10番、はい。
吉川さんは目が小さいですか？
いいえ、目が小さくないです。
はい、そうですね。目が結構大きいですね。はい、じゃあ the next part. So you can just see what you can come up with to describe
Okay.
one of the people.
川村さんは背が高いです。
はい。
水野さんは太っています。
山中さんはメガネをかけています。
はい。ね。
小川さん。
はい、小川さん。
小川さんは髪がちょっと長い。
はい、長いですね。はい。
中山さんはパンツを履いています。
はい、履いています。
履いています。
はい。Okay. And you want to be careful with the word pantsu.
I know, that's why I
Yeah, there's one, yeah, zubon works better. There's apparently one intonation you can use where it means slacks and the other intonation means underwear. But I haven't been able to figure out how to differentiate the two clearly. So I prefer zubon for slacks.
Is it Z-U-B-O-N?
Yeah,
Okay.
zubon, yeah. And they usually write that one in hiragana, although I suspect that it's probably of Portuguese origin because it's one of the things that was obviously imported from the West. And the fact that it's in hiragana tells me that it's one of the oldest loanwords, because only the very old loanwords are habitually written in hiragana instead of katakana. But a lot of those very old loanwords date to the time when the Portuguese and the Spanish were the first Europeans to get to Japan in the late 1400s.
Okay.
You know, when what's-his-face circumnavigated the globe, found his way to Japan. So, so they were the first to get there. And so a lot of those very old words are Spanish or Portuguese in origin. So that's where we get pan and zubon and tabaco, because they found tobacco around the same time they found Japan. They found it in North America, but they quickly started using it and growing it everywhere they could find a place for it. So, yeah, it's interesting that it's sort of an intersection of history and language rather than some of these vocabulary words. And even tempura is not a Japanese original dish. It's influenced by, I think, Portuguese cooking. I don't know what it would have been called originally. Apparently the reason it's called tempura is because the taste was so heavenly. So it's got the 10 for heaven. But but apparently breading and frying something like that was a Western concept that Japan did not already have. I don't think deep frying was native to Japan.
Deep frying is the best.
Okay. So you want to try D?
Yeah.
That'll probably be the last thing we have time for.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Time flies.
Yep. So.
Okay. T シャツを着ています。
はい。
私ですか？
ジーンズを履いています。
はい。
髪が短いです。
ジョーさん？
はい。
T-shirts. Is that the same as T-shirts?
Not really. That would be called shatsu instead of T-shirts. T-shirts is like what we would call a T-shirt. A button-down shirt would just be shatsu.
Okay.
Shatsu.
Your turn. Let's just like give away.
赤い髪。
赤い髪がいい。
Yes. があります。
あります。はい。鉛筆を持っています。
はい。Yeah, this is a lot more fun game with a larger class. Yeah, it's a lot more interesting to like have somebody come and stand in the front of the room and look out over a class of like 20 people and do this exercise. So, should we look at the next activity real quick? So this one basically,
2 adjectives.
新しくて綺麗です. So, do you remember how to make the te forms of adjectives? So whichever, so kute for e adjectives and de for na adjectives, right?
Shizuka de.
Yeah, so shizuka de, you don't cut anything off of the original adjective, you just replace the na with de. So shizuka de kirei desu would be like, it's quiet and beautiful. Okay, or omoshirokute tanoshii desu. It's interesting and fun, So, and it doesn't matter how many adjectives you want to use. You can use strings of 3 or 4 or 5 if you want. And you can just keep doing te form, te form, te form, te form until the final one. And then that's the one that you conjugate, generally in either the past or the present tense. Probably positive, because it would be kind of weird to list all those negatives, all those adjectives, and then end with a negative, and then it becomes very ambiguous whether you meant that negative to apply to just the one adjective on the end or all of them. So we try to avoid doing negatives when you're stringing adjectives together, because it becomes very confusing if you do that.
But so if you're saying something bad about something, you would just use the negative at the very end.
Yeah, well, See, that, it's ambiguous, so that's why you don't
Use it.
usually do that. So you would try to use the negative sounding adjectives in their positive form. So like, 悪くて、好きじゃないです。You know, or 悪くて嫌いです。You know, it was horrible and I hated. You know, 成績が悪くて、寂しいです。My grades were terrible and I'm sad, you know.
So, okay. Okay.
Or 悲しいです, you know.
Okay.
So, but you get the point. So
Mhm.
generally for now, you're using them in the positive sense, and they're just having you link to.
Okay.
So,
東京は大きくて賑やかです。
はい、そうですね。
みちこさんはきれい、
きれいで、
きれいで
はい。
かっこいい。
あ、
優
you
しい
skipped,
That's
you
the point.
skipped. 優しい。
Sorry, 優しいです。
はい。きれいで優しいです。
たけしさんは背が高くてかっこいいです。
Sure. Wait, he's tall and cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tall and cool. Good looking. Yeah, はい。
アパートは
静
かで大きいです。
はい。
新幹線は早くて
はい、早くて。
便利です。
はい、そうですね。
うん
早くて便利です。はい。fast and convenient. そうですね。
スーさんは頭がいい。
よくて、よくて。
よくて
親切です。
親切です。
はい、
What's
親
that?
切 is kind.
Kind.
It's one of your new ones, I believe.
Yeah.
It is. I didn't even see it.
Kind.
Right.
For not adjectives.
Okay.
Yeah,
親切
親切です。はい。
親切です。
私の国の人は元気で賑やかです。
はい。いいですね。
いいです。
いいです。
はい。And that phraseology, 私の国の人, that could mean your adopted country or your birth country in your case. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
True then.
Yeah, yeah, it applies either way, right? Yeah, but that, just wanted you to know, that phrase can be used to refer, you know, if you wanted to use it to refer to Peru, you know. Yeah, a lot of times, people who have come from one country but now live in another country, they'll say watashi no kuni to mean their home original country, and then they'll say something about, but ima, you know, America ni sundeemasu, or something like that. Okay, so,
Well, this isn't a very long chapter, so it's good.
okay, so, yeah, we've gone through quite a few
Yeah.
Yeah, that way we
activities.
can work on the other chapter too.
Yeah, so if that's okay with Ellie
Yeah.
also, if you three want to work on it that way, that we
Yeah.
could kind
Like
of include both, and then have a consolidated test,
Yeah.
and then have time to get through that much more material, because we're not taking as many of our infrequent meetings for test taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can do 7 and 8 together,
Mhm.
and then 9 and 10 could go together,
Yeah.
and we'll see
Much time.
how much, and then 11 and 12 could be together for a final exam if you want to finish the,
Yeah.
yeah, so you,
I have a weird question.
hi,
So let's say I don't know how many chapters are here, but.
it's 12 chapters in this book.
Okay, so let's say we get through like the 12 chapters.
Mhm.
Like, could we, I don't know if it's but if it's possible to have like a test where it's all combined, that way we
like
can
a
practice.
comprehensive everything. Oh,
Yeah, like practice everything, like
Like just to see
review.
how much, yeah.
how much
okay.
we've learned
Yeah.
as a whole.
We can think about it,
Yeah.
I mean, certainly
It
we
doesn't
Like
have to
what-
be this
take, like,
semester, maybe
questions
at the
from, like,
beginning
all the
of
past
next time,
tests?
because I'm
Yeah.
still taking the next.
Right, yeah, so that's another possibility to think about, is to have like almost like a pretest at the beginning of the new semester, to
Yeah.
have like a comprehensive
Because it's been like
review
since
of the
May.
previous book before we start the new book.
Yeah, because it's in May until like December or so, so it's a lot of stuff like maybe like you think it's not like, oh, I'll remember, but you don't really remember.
Right,
So,
yeah.
I mean, if it's possible. If not, then it's fine.
Every time I talk to the Japanese ones, it's like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so maybe even if it's not a test, maybe just like
Like
a
a
review
practice,
activity
yeah.
of some sort. We can think about what we can come up with